This is CES MMA.
Welcome back to Foxwoods Resort Casino. It's time for our main event. This one being fought in the welterweight division, and right now you're taking a look at Chris "Cappy" Woodall from Atlanta, Georgia, making his way to the cage right now. Woodall comes in at 12-4 with 5 knockouts. Last time we saw him, ironically, was in Rhode Island. He fought in the main event of a CES show against John Doomsday Howard, and that was Howard's final fight before going back to the UFC. Howard won it in quick fashion in the opening round, but Chris Woodall is a sturdy veteran, 40 years of age. Did not fight on U.S. soil before that fight. Since 2006, he spent 7 years fighting overseas, fighting in the Ukraine, fighting in Latvia, and fought incredibly tough competition in a more traditional old-school style of mixed martial arts. They call it pancration style, more of a combination of wrestling and boxing. And Woodall certainly made his bones overseas before coming back to the United States. And his reason for coming back to the U.S. and fighting here on his home soil was to reestablish the sport in his native of Atlanta, Georgia. He wanted the young fighters, the young up-and-comers to remember who he was and to try to get them back in the gyms. And he certainly has inspired a lot of people where he's from. Took on a very tough veteran in Doomsday Howard. Howard, after that win, went back to the UFC in Boston several weeks later and then won his first UFC fight in more than 3 years. So you see a lot of transition, a lot of change in different careers. And now Chris Woodall comes here to Foxwoods tonight to try to score another upset, potentially against another former UFC fighter in Chuck Cold Steel O'Neal. And Scott, we were just discussing how Chris Woodall spent a lot of time overseas before fighting Doomsday Howard earlier this year. He spent 7 years fighting in the Ukraine, fighting in Latvia.
He spent some time in Brazil, too, if I'm correct.
In Brazil, that pancration-style MMA, more the old-school traditional style. And one of the reasons he came back here, in addition to wanting to reestablish MMA in Georgia and in Atlanta, was because a lot of the unified modern-day rules have taken over overseas, and it's sort of limited the opportunities for the old-school guys like Woodall, who they like to fight without rounds, no time limits. It seems to have gone the wayside, and now the more traditional rules have taken over everywhere. So we figured, might as well come back here and fight on my home soil. The commute's a little less hectic, I'm sure. He used to have to go out there a week in advance, he told me, just to get over the jet lag before he could actually step in there and fight.
Without a doubt. I mean, being part of, the guys that I was with, Kenny, Florian, Jorge Rivera, when you travel and you're going international, you get out there 7, 8, 9 days. Australia, I think we're out there 10 days early. And he's right, it takes a little bit. But when you're a little closer to home and you can sleep in your own bed an extra day or two, it makes a big difference.
And right now, Chuck Cold Steel O'Neal making his way back to the cage. This is a very big fight for O'Neal. Last time out, he took on Yield de Freitas, a very tough fight. De Freitas has tremendous strength. He stopped O'Neal in the opening round. It was a tough loss. He had come off back-to-back wins, and he was starting to climb that ladder, get back toward the UFC discussion again. And then he hit a roadblock against De Freitas and needs another big win here. Obviously, another loss could be deflating and could drop him further down that ladder, but a win could get him right back in the picture again.
In any of these combat sports, you can take one loss and bounce back from it. Very rarely can you take two and make your way back up that ladder again. It's very tough. The skill level, the guys that are coming up now are such killers, and you really can't afford too many mistakes. Everybody can drop one. There are no undefeated fighters, to my knowledge, in MMA.
All right, here it is. The tail of the tape for our main event. Chuck O'Neal coming in at 11-6 with 3 knockouts. He weighed 170 yesterday. Chris Woodall tipping the scales at 168. He is 12-4 with 5 knockouts. Let's send it to cage side announcer Rick Provost for the official introduction.
Classic Entertainment and Sports, CES MMA, presents another classic main event. Presented to you in conjunction with promoter Jimmy Birchfield Sr. Tonight's action is regulated and sanctioned by the Mashantucket Pequot Gaming Commission, Chairman George Henningsen, Vice Chairman Kenneth Reels. Your physicians at ringside are Dr. Michael Schwartz, Dr. Michael Raj Kumar, and Dr. Anthony Alessi. The judges for this bout are Kevin McDonald, Wayne Lima, and Dave Torelli. The man in charge at the bell is Kevin Mulhall. Now, let's meet the gladiators. This fight is scheduled for 3 5-minute rounds in the welterweight division. Fighting out of the blue corner, weighing in at 168 pounds, with a professional record of 12 wins and 4 losses, with 5 wins coming by way of knockout and 6 submissions. Representing the wild card gym out of Atlanta, Georgia, please welcome Chris Cappy Woodall. Woodall. And introducing out of the red corner, this UFC veteran and former Ultimate Fighter contender, weighed in at 170 pounds, with a professional record of 11 wins and 6 losses, with 3 wins coming by way of knockout and 5 submissions, representing Mass Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out of Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Please welcome Chuck Cold Steel O'Neal. O'Neal. 3 rounds, welterweights.
Chuck O'Neal in the purple and black trunks, Chris Woodall in the shorter black trunks. Favorite style of yours, Scott?
I'm running out to get a pair right now. I'll be back.
When Chris Woodall fought Doomsday Howard, he had caught him early a couple of times with some kicks to the midsection, right below the chest. And Doomsday Howard told matchmaker Pat Sullivan afterward, I wanted to get him to the ground right away after that. I didn't want to take any more of those
Chuck
kicks.
wasting no time. He threw a rear leg. It turned into a sweep more than a kick. Now Chuck looking to improve his position from guard to half.
Point being that Chris Woodall has some power behind those legs, and he can sustain some damage, and he can take a few punches here and there, and he can dish it out as well. It's not going to be an easy fight for Chuck O'Neal by any stretch.
Woodall did a nice job of getting his guard back. He recovered that. He went from half guard to guard, and he's in that closed guard position, which is very, very defensive.
Scott, if you remember, too, Chuck O'Neal caught quite a scare against Ralph Johnson 2
Ralph
fights
came
prior to
out
that.
the first 20 seconds of the fight and put Chuck on his tushy with the right hand, but Chuck recovered very, very well and ended up finishing that fight another 30 seconds later.
O'Neal may have 12 years on Woodall. Woodall coming in at 40 years of age, but if anything, we know that anything can happen once inside that cage. We saw that with the Ralph Johnson-Chuck O'Neal fight a couple fights back earlier this summer. O'Neal in good control right now, Scott. He got that quick takedown.
Yeah, and like we spoke about earlier, Chuck has worked Woodall up against the cage, and now that makes it really tough to start for Woodall to get his hips out. Either he should start looking to push down on the head, get a foot on the hip, create some space, and start climbing that cage. Couple of straight right hands by Chuck, landed pretty well.
And he gets Woodall right back down on his back.
This is where Chuck prefers to be. Nice heavy side control, short punches, aggravating punches, good position, and then you'll see him just explode into a secondary position. Chuck's got to be careful of the sweep here. If Woodall can pop his hips over, but Chuck gets right into mount. This might not last too long if Woodall can't buck him off. Chuck doing a good job of trying to flatten Woodall out.
Woodall just wants to stay close to O'Neal so he can't land those rights or lefts.
Chuck's going to a grapevine here, trying to take Woodall's base and ability to buck him off out. Chuck posturing back up again for strikes. You can look to see him maybe take a step over. Nice heavy elbows there. Woodall doesn't like any of this. That's it.
That's going to do it. Woodall busted open. O'Neal lands the elbows. He lands the big right hands, and that is all.
He's open wide right here.
That cut came quickly, Scott, and a snap of a finger, all of a sudden Woodall was bleeding profusely from the forehead, I believe it was.
We like to get a better look at that, but that was the elbow that opened him up clean.
You saw the blood on the forearm as Woodall tried to defend himself, unable to do so, and Chuck O'Neal gets the win by technical knockout. Good stoppage by the referee, and that's all she wrote. A big win for Chuck O'Neal. He needed this one, Scott. He could not obviously afford another loss.
It wasn't just a win as a decision or et cetera. It was most certainly in convincing fashion.
And yeah, Scott, you see that cut right now. That's above. That's on the forehead, right on the hairline.
Well, you got to be careful. Some of those head cuts can turn out to be arterial, and that's where there's a lot of issues.
Well, we're going to take a look in just a second.
There's your first elbow. That's
it is.
the elbow that opened him up. You could actually see Woodall's eyes roll. You can start to see that blood coming. The first elbow kind of grazed. The second elbow was solid, and that's going to do it right there.
And he snuck in 2 more big right hands, too, for extra measure, and you see the blood. Here it is from
You can see
another
the
angle.
first one was to the side of the head. Chuck postured, and the second one just split him wide open.
Well, an ugly finish for Chris Woodall, and a big win for Chuck O'Neal, trying to get back on track after the loss to Yield Freitas earlier this year. Nice show of respect between the two.
Absolutely.
He's got it here. He's got it.
Great ground and pound for Chuck O'Neal. That really puts the pound and ground and pound with that elbow.
Yes, it does.
An unbelievable finish and a big win for O'Neal in the main event. The former Ultimate Fighter contestant.
That's the one we were talking about. Chuck needed that on the way back up the ladder.
Let's do cage side announcer Rick Provost for the particulars.
The referee stops the bout at 2 minutes and 24 seconds of the first round due to unanswered strikes. And your winner is Chuck Cold Steel O'Neal.
Chuck, if I can have you for 1 second before you take a picture, congratulations. You really needed to get off that schneid. I knew you were hungry for this. How's it feel?
Feels real good, man. I got right back to training. I made some improvements. I got a little extra muscle added on, and got great coaches, man. And, you know, this squad behind me, that's where it's at right there.
Yeah, you can see that motley crew a mile away, can't you? You look like you had plenty of gas. You looked like you were really keeping the pressure the whole time. Did anything get in your way? Did you have a second thought about anything? Because you just passed right to side control, kind of stayed there, dropped some heavy elbows. Exactly what you were thinking?
Yeah, you know, Nate, he's probably the most underutilized MMA coach around here, and he's always working on my elbows, and he's like, one of these times you're going to land some of these. So we game plan that a lot. We really put the elbows to work in training.
Well, he was right. You landed it, opened him up wide. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, he's back. Chuck Coach Steel O'Neal.